Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 21-day challenge. Today is 15. Yes, I was MIA, I think on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had this cold, flu, whatever you want to call it. I mean, stuff was coming out from places and it just wasn't pretty. And I thought, I'm not sure I want to go live with that. I mean, I understand the whole idea of being authentic and being your real self, but uh-uh. So, um, coaching lesson, you can decide to give up and go home. Like, oh, I knew it was never going to work. I knew I couldn't do all 21 days. I knew I would have a setback, blah, blah, blah. Things like this never work out for me. Or you can be like, what the heck? Just pick up and keep going. And so I'm going to pick up and keep going. It wasn't my intention to quit. It wasn't my desire to quit. I didn't really quit. I simply had a detour. And that's the way it goes when we're building our businesses, when we're creating a life of change. We got to be ready for the setbacks and we've got to be willing to take them and then move past them. And so I moved past it. Now I'm not going to promise I'll get through this whole video without a cough or a sneeze. And if anything starts running out of my nose, I'll just go like this and then I'll run off screen and have somebody else shut it down. But until then, I want to go back and answer the questions that I had promised to answer last week in the Q&A portion. So one of the questions that I got asked, and I'll go over the others in the upcoming days, was, hey, Eric, I see a lot of people put out a rubbish short ebook for branding and then claim they're a #1 bestseller author. But when you look into it, it is some obscure field on Amazon. Do you think this style of branding is beneficial or do you think it distracts from their authenticity? Now, I've just got proof that this was sent to me. So I didn't use the word rubbish. I didn't use the off branding or off obscure. But here's what I'm going to say. And I've seen that. And what got me started in doing what I do is I would have people send me their books because I used to do a show called Author Talk. Yes, it's coming back. I'll explain that later. But they would send me their book and say, I'd love you to read it and I'd love for you to interview me and da 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 da. And I would read their book and I was like, okay, first, this book is poorly written, or there's grammar errors, or there's spelling errors, or there's reference, like there's just all kinds of errors. Or I would go and I'd research who they were on Facebook or LinkedIn or through their website and through social media. And then I would look at the book and it was like, this book is like a thumb that belongs to somebody else's hand. I don't see how this book matches up with this person, or I don't understand how this business and this book work together. And it was almost like they had written the book and hoped that somehow if the book became a bestseller, if the book was picked up, if people started reading the book, they would be pulled in to this other space. But in the meantime, they were going to hold their lane over here. They were going to keep on doing what they were doing. And that they didn't want to really invest in this book, as evidenced by the lack of editing or the cover design or just some of the formatting situation, that they didn't want to really invest in this book because they didn't believe this book had clarity, didn't have value, didn't have a position. And so they were really testing their position through this book. And if it all failed, then they could just sort of put the book in the back, say, I was a published author, junk it, and move on. And so as I would read these over and over and over again, and some of my own coaching clients were writing books without telling me they were writing books, which as a coach, I had to learn around. And I would be like, wait a minute, we're building this business. You wrote this book. Now, I'm saying this in reference to more nonfiction books. Fiction books are a different thing. And I would be like, this isn't right. If you believe in this idea, if you believe in this thought, if you believe in this process or whatever you're sharing over here in the book, shouldn't that be reflected in your brand? Shouldn't that be reflected in your workshop? Shouldn't it be reflected in your classes? Shouldn't it be reflected in your copy, your website, etc.? So what I decided was that if I was going to work with somebody and they would come to me and say, could you edit my book? Could you review my book? Because I have experience in producing screenplays and #1 bestsellers for other authors. I was going to make sure that we were creating a message that was congruent across all their platforms. as it related to nonfiction. And so I would sit down and say, okay, what is the value of this book into the greater world? Do you believe in that message? Do you believe that we have the ability to communicate that idea in such a way that we can transform lives? And if I get a yes to that, then I would say, great. Now, how is this part of your platform? Because so often I have to understand what you want is the outcome. And if the outcome is to sell 1 million books versus to impact 1 million lives, then those are two different directions, two different vehicles that we approach the book writing process as. And so if your book is to be a #1 Amazon bestseller, period, end of story, I can get that done in 30 minutes. If your book is to impact lives, transform lives, create change, build a platform, build a business, become part of your brand, your signature story, then we got to do it a little differently. We've got to really dive in. We've got to really plant it deep. And often when we're writing that book, I will sit down and I'll say something like, okay, pull that out because that's going to be part of this keynote. Pull that out. We're going to use that as a lead in to a podcast. And we start pulling pieces of the book out and putting pieces of the book back in so that we can create a complete message. And so when somebody asks, I see a lot of people put out a rubbish short ebook. I didn't say this. I swear I did not say this. Though I will have to send like cookies to the person that sent me this. Um, a rubbish short ebook for branding and then claim they're a #1 best-selling author. But when you look into it, some obscure field, it's on some obscure field on Amazon. Do you think the style of branding is beneficial? Do you think it detracts from their authenticity? Yes, and yes, yes. I laugh because if you expect to command a stage or be paid a coaching fee or a consulting fee that has a comma in it, but you're not willing to invest that same equal amount into the thing that you're using as the vehicle to make that happen, then I don't know what fantasy you live in. Like, where can you invest $1 and get $1 million return? Where can you say, I put $100 into writing my book, but I want to be paid $10,000 as a coach, or $50,000 for a weekend workshop, or I want to be thought of as the leading expert in this field? I don't know anywhere on the planet that works. So, yeah, if you write your ebook and you post on it, best-selling author, and you get some mileage out of it, good for you. But what I'll tell you is the people that are hiring for the big platforms, the people that are doing the research for the big coaching jobs or consulting jobs, will take a moment and read your book. They'll take a moment and dig into your other story. They'll take a moment and look at your entire brand, and then they'll make their decision. What you invest, you always get in return, whether it's time or whether it's money. And so if you're going to write a book, and you don't have to write a book, nobody says you have to write a book. But if you're going to write a book that builds a legacy for you, that builds a business for you, that echoes your brand, that echoes your thought leadership, that echoes who you are at your deepest level, then you'll get the business from it. I recently worked with an author, and I said, okay, we're building this book. We have the reader in mind, the client avatar, so to speak. Can you see your book sitting next to them and in a moment picking it up and beginning to read it and reading it cover to cover, uninterrupted, and you not being in the room? Do you think the book holds its own? Do you think the book can create the transformation that you wanted to create the impact, create the inspiration, create the motivation, create the change, whatever it is? Do you think it can do that without you standing there explaining it, without you having to support it? And the author thought for a moment and said, yeah, I think it finally can. I said, is it something you'll be proud to leave sitting somewhere without having to explain it? Yeah, I think I will. I said, good, let's go publish it. I asked the same question to you. If you're thinking of your book as a business card, how often have you carried a business card around for more than an hour sometimes? It's like you get to a conference, somebody hands you a business card, and before you check out of the hotel, they're all in the trash. But if you're thinking of your book as a vehicle to carry your message, to transform lives, to make an impact, and really build your brand and your business, then one-off ebook obscure category thing isn't what you're searching. And so, like I said, I always ask my authors, what is the end in mind? What is it you want? What is the objective? And if that objective is in alignment with what I want to do every day in my business, then you and I are going to work together. If it isn't, I'm okay. I'm okay not being a part of it, because I want to be proud of each and every book that I handle. I want my team to be proud of each and every book that we invest our time in. I mean, I sit down and I read these books sometimes 3 or 4 times, like old school paper and pencil reading. I commit hours every day just to sitting and reading. I want to be doing it in something that I feel is going to add to the value of the world. And so I guess the answer was given. Um, do it, do it based on who you are. If you're branding your business and wanting to create true legacy for your business and for your message, what are you willing to invest in it? All right, well, that's question number one. I've got 3 or 4 more that I'll go over in the next couple days. Thank you again, everybody who sent me get well wishes or where have you been wishes. Again, thank you for being a part of the day 15 of the 21-day challenge. And if I can be of any help to you or answer any questions you have, let me know. As we move towards the end of the 21-day challenge, I'm going to start sharing less challenges and more information about what I do and how you can benefit, and just dumping knowledge into you about branding and about building your message and about building your book or building your keynote or building your TED Talk. Because that's what I do every day. I work with people who are coaches and thought leaders on creating their story. It's your competitive advantage. Nobody else has your story. So why are you competing with them against their story or against their product or against their IP when you have one that nobody can take? And so, yes, your story is your competitive advantage. So let's use it. Right? Why not? All right. If I can be of help to you, let me know. In the meantime, be well, my friends. Be well.